Hello. Good morning, everybody. Do you have your coffee yet? Time to get it. We're going to talk. Man, what an interesting day. Saw me on Bill Mitchell? Good. Good morning, good morning. That's why I'm here. Saw me on Voice Radio. Yes, get your coffee. The New Yorker piece on Cernovich? No, I assume it was a hit piece, right? Maybe that's why they called me for a comment. Morning, Detroit. Hey. All right. No, they said good things. Oh, interesting. Dropping like a bomb. Wag warn. Yeah, there might be a wag coming up. Yeah, let me get this all set up here so I can relax. The Atlantic piece called him a racist. All right, so, oh yeah, happy Halloween, pre-Halloween. So, is it my imagination, whereas Clinton and her team doing nothing but shooting messengers today? It's like, WikiLeaks, damn those Russians. FBI, shoot Comey. Is it all about, shoot the messengers? Yeah. Have you noticed that the one of the polls went from Clinton was up 12 to Clinton is up 2, coincidentally a week before the actual election? Now, two possibilities. One is that events in the news actually cause people to change their mind that much in 1 week. Possible. The other possibility, which I think is far more likely, is that the pollsters know that if the actual election happens and their polls on election day are completely off, that they've lost all their credibility and their business model is evaporated. So if you were fraudulent, and I'm just not saying anybody is, but hypothetically, if your poll was fraudulent and you knew it, and you knew you were going to get busted in a week, what would you do about it? I think you'd pick anything in the news that looked convenient and say, let's use this as a reason to close these polls. And all you have to do is change your sample, change your assumptions, change some damn thing. So when you see something go from 12 up to 2 up in a week, and the sample is still skewed, I think New York Times had an article about the other polls today. I might have tweeted that today. They don't poll over the weekend? Yeah. So the polls don't even reflect yet any of the Comey stuff, right? So that's not even reflected. So I think the most interesting thing, well, there's just so many interesting things. It's impossible to even say what's the most interesting thing right now, isn't it? Everything's interesting. There's nothing that isn't interesting right now. So Clinton's defense, if you can call it that, of the Comey letter is that it was inappropriate, that it was a violation of their policy, I guess. But here's the thing: if you were the FBI and you had information that would probably change the course of history, and you held on to it, that's sort of making a decision to change history, isn't it? Because if you think the emails would change it, and you hold them off, I think either way it's a decision to change history. So the only decision that you can make, because either decision to do something or not do something, both of them would change history. The only way you can do that and get away with it, given that you're going to violate your own internal policies on that stuff, is to make sure you're on the side of truth. Right? That's your only defense. In the end, you got to let the truth, be the gauge as to whether or not it made sense to release this stuff. Now, if it turns out that there's nothing in those emails, I would have a real problem with Comey as well. Regardless of who you're preferring for president, it would be a problem if Comey interfered and didn't have anything. If there wasn't just nothing in those emails, or even if it was trivial, there's something, but it's not a big deal. I would say that would be a big problem. And I would be completely in agreement with Clinton on that. If you're being even a little bit objective, you don't want the FBI doing this sort of stuff to affect elections. And given that we already watched Comey look at some pretty damning evidence, and he laid it out the first time he talked about the investigation, he laid out the evidence pretty clearly and then said, I'm not going to get involved. And I praised him at the time. And I said, I might have been one of his only defenders at the time. I said that he's letting the country decide. He doesn't want to take it out of the voters' hands, and I actually thought that was a noble thing to do. Now, it might be there are other reasons that are less noble, but I'm going to give him the benefit of a doubt, right? I'm going to say I think he did the right thing the first time by not prosecuting, because I do think the country wanted to make the decision, and he let the Republic do its thing. But now that he has this new information, and now that he's decided he will effectively interfere in the election, would he do that unless he'd seen something in those emails that was pretty bad, right? Given we know that he actually risked his career and his reputation to not interfere with the election once, do you think that he looked at these emails and said, well, we haven't really looked at them in detail, but there's a lot of them, and that alone is enough to make us, take pause? Keep in mind that he did not take the option, which I understand was available to him, to privately tell Congress that he was looking into it, so that he could be clean in terms of having notified Congress, and they could keep it as secret as they needed to. Now, he had that option, and we imagine that he knew he had that option. So what possible reason would there be for Comey to maybe, influence the result of the election with his letter saying he was reopening things? The only explanation I can come up with is that there's something so bad in that email bunch that he knew it would be disqualifying to Clinton. And so he's actually disqualifying her for the good of the country. So, there are always lots of filters to look at this thing. So one of the filters is that Comey is a terrible guy. The other filter, the one I'm choosing to use until proven wrong, is that Comey is a patriot, right? Because you can make a case that in both situations, what he did was for the benefit of the country. The first time staying out of it because he laid out the evidence and let the public decide. I would say that was a patriotic thing, potentially. Again, we don't know what he was thinking. We don't know what all the forces were involved. And you could make an argument that he's doing the patriotic thing again this time by interfering, but only under the assumption that he's seen something so bad that it's a pretty good chance that it would have changed the election, or at least, he wants to avoid the situation where we elect a president who's under nothing but continuous, investigations, which can't be good for the country. So I think you could make two arguments. One is that he's, incompetent and, doing things for political purposes, and that would totally explain things, by the way. You could make that argument and all the data would fit it. But you could also make the argument that I just did, that he's a patriot the first time and a patriot the second time. He just has different information the second time, so he's acting differently. We'll never. I don't know if we'll ever know, because we're not going to see what he sees necessarily. Um, so the question is, how did those emails get on there in the first place? I think Huma is saying that she doesn't know how any emails got on there because it's her husband's laptop. That is interesting, isn't it? So I tweeted humorously that those Russian hackers are really good because somehow they hacked all those emails off of the NSA servers, put them on Huma's laptop, and somehow pinned it all on Wiener. And by the way, that's my most popular tweet of all times. I pinned it to the top of my Twitter feed. Comey is incompetent. I don't know if you can say that. I think you have to wait. Like I said, there is an argument that he's not just competent, but a patriot as well. Lutz says there's a Trump story that's going to change the election. Is that what he's saying, Lutz? What is Lutz saying? Is he saying it's a Trump story or a Clinton story that's coming out? Lutz. What do you think of Lynch blocking the FBI warrant? There's a new tape of Trump coming. Well, you knew that was going to happen. I wonder if it's sex or racism. Do they say it's racism? Do they say? Is there any evidence that the probably the N-word, something about The Apprentice? Huh. Chicago Tribune is calling for Hillary to step down. So here's what's going to happen that I think is interesting. So if you believe that the media has been favorable to Clinton, that she is their preferred candidate, and that they've been protecting her all along, and by the way, I think that most people believe that. It's going a little bit beyond speculation at this point, right? You could say the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN in particular, ABC probably, are just on the Clinton side. And that would be great if Clinton became president and did a good job, and that's all good. They supported a good president, and that's all good. But now that this information has come out, I have to think that there are important people behind these media Goliaths that probably have talked to her or her people in person before they threw in for her, and probably asked some question like this: is there anything we need to worry about? Is there any secrets coming out? Is there anything that would embarrass us later if we support you? Adam Cernovich 2024. And what happens if all these media people feel betrayed? What happens if they feel like they took a chance for Clinton, and not only did she stab him in the back by having these secrets that are coming out, but she stabbed him and then she cut off all their limbs and removed their ears and put them in a box and sent them to their relatives. I mean, if this stuff is true, and at least the Clinton Foundation stuff looks pretty true. I mean, it seems to be clear that the Clintons were involved in a criminal enterprise, and not just a small one, like a major one that's buying and selling influence across the world, and possibly starting wars because of where the cash is coming from. So just imagine how huge this embarrassment is. And now this is, by association, is being painted on the New York Times and CNN and all their correspondents, Washington Post. So if you were those guys, if you were the media who had been supporting her, and then you find out this stuff, and you realize that she might lose, first of all. I obviously think she will. I think it's over at this point. There could be another surprise coming this week. Sure, there could be another Trump bombshell. Yeah, Mark Cuban disappeared for a while, didn't he? There could be another bombshell. So, there's a week to go. Anything could happen. But let's say Clinton loses. What happens to the media who have been supporting her? I think they turn violent. I think they kill their own. I think that when they turn, they're going to turn on Clinton so hard and so fast. It's going to be awful. It's just going to be awful. Purge? Yeah, I think they, in order to save themselves, and maybe that's what we should be asking the media that's supporting them. Maybe we should say, save yourself. we'll give you a pass. We'll let this one go. Because, let's be honest. The media's in the bag for Clinton. But it may be, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It may be that they thought she was the best president. It may be that they thought Trump was a terrible choice. So it may be that while they were very biased for Clinton, and that seemed to be, a violation of their fiduciary responsibilities, it may be that they thought they were doing it for the good of the country, the good of the world. All right? So let's face it. If any of us were in the position where you could make the world a better place, but to do it, you had to bend the law, you had to, do something a little bit unethical, but it would save the world. It would avoid nuclear war. Wouldn't you do it? I'd do it. I'd risk jail to save the world. If you wouldn't, you're kind of a bad person. So if the media that favored Clinton just thought she was the best choice, I kind of forgive them a little bit, because we do all have some kind of a patriotic duty to do what's good for the country, as best we can determine it. There's no requirement that you're right all the time, but there is a requirement that your intentions are in the right place. And maybe they were. But what happens now when they find out they've been totally screwed? I mean, just think how embarrassed they are, her main supporters, the people who have spoken out the most. How embarrassed are they now that all this new stuff is coming out? It's insanely bad. So I was just watching Fox, and by the way, if you watch Fox, Trump is winning, and if you watch CNN, Clinton's winning. So depending on who I want to see winning, I change channels. So Maria Bartiromo was going on a rampage in a good way. She was talking about how the social media blackout on the FBI emails has caused it to not trend. And this reminded me of something else. All right. So those of you who ask about creativity, like how does creativity work? It works this way. You fill yourself up with a bunch of ideas, and then you surprise yourself that some of them look like they got connected. So let me connect a few things for you. This should get me banned from Twitter at about 10 minutes. All right. So if this is the last you ever see of me, it's been nice knowing you. So terrorism, if you look at ISIS, one of the big suspicions was that Saudi Arabia was, more of a frenemy than a friend. Maybe some elements in Saudi Arabia are funding ISIS or funded Al Qaeda. Now, I don't know the reality there. I just know that that's the conversation, right? So Saudi Arabia's got their beak wet a little bit with terrorism, and it's one of the biggest problems in the world. Another big problem is this media blackout stuff. And apparently Twitter is one of its biggest share owners is a Saudi citizen. Prince, name I can't remember. And by the way, I have no reason to think there's any problems with that particular guy, whose name I wish I could remember. Prince Al-Wida something. So you can help me out. But as far as I know, he's just a legitimate investor. Walid. As far as I know, he's a legitimate investor who's invested in Citicorp and lots of other places. So there's no reason to think there's anything suspicious there. But we are seeing his preferred candidate having some preferential treatment on Twitter. All right, so that's another Saudi connection. Then you have the Clinton Foundation, and you've got suggestions that there was Saudi money affecting them. So Saudi Arabia, once again. And then more recently, the suggestions, which by the way I don't buy into, that Huma is really too connected to Saudi Arabia and is secretly a spy for Saudi Arabia. So let me say as clearly as I can that I don't believe any of these rumors, which is not to say they're untrue. It's just to say they don't really have the backing that would make me think that they're true. But how did Saudi Arabia become a key to everything? Like what? And if you look at even jobs, let's take the question of jobs, right? Biggest question in the United States is jobs. Wouldn't we have jobs if Saudi Arabia was not controlling the price of oil and driving it down to kill the American shale oil industry? Am I wrong? So if you look at the biggest issues in the world, jobs, Saudi Arabia is killing jobs in the United States by artificially lowering the price of oil and wiping out our gigantic energy industry that we're developing in the United States. So Saudi Arabia is sort of behind our job loss, at least part of it. A big part of it, but part of it. They also seem to be involved in this Clinton Foundation thing, or am I wrong, right? Saudi Arabia is one of the donors to the Clinton Foundation. Somebody fact check me on that in case. Yeah, okay. So that's one of the biggest stories in the world, right? That the Clinton Foundation may be selling favors, and hey, there are those Saudis again. And then here on Twitter, we've got a problem with possible censorship, possible shadow banning, and there's an important Saudi prince who owns a lot of Twitter. And then you've got Huma's involvement. Again, I have no reason to think that Huma is anything but a good egg. I suspect, she's a victim in all this. I'm not like the rest of you. I know the rest of you just want to think she's one of the bad guys, but and maybe she is, but I don't have any evidence to support that assumption. But there again, Saudi connection. And then, of course, the suspicion that the Saudis are supporting terrorism more than they're fighting it. And again, I would imagine, even if that's true, when we talk about the Saudis, it may not be the ruling family that has anything to do with it supporting terrorists, because the terrorists want to kill the ruling family. So it seems like maybe that would be a hard hand for them to play. But that doesn't mean there aren't citizens, wealthy citizens in Saudi Arabia who aren't doing things on their own. But that's a whole lot of Saudi Arabia connection. Whole lot. So some of you are getting dropped, I know, but that's probably the connection problem on your end, because I've got a clean, fast connection over here. Your CIA. So here's a question. Here's an interesting question for you. Let's say, I'm just going to make some assumptions here, but follow along. This is just for fun. Let's say there's enough information out in the public, either now or soon, with different leaks and emails and whatnot, that you as a voter were fairly convinced that Hillary Clinton was part of a major criminal enterprise, let's just say the Clinton Foundation, all right? Because there's enough information on that now to know that there's not really any doubt that they were selling favors for influence. Let's say you thought she was involved in crime and should be convicted. Let's say you think the server thing was a crime. Now let's say also that you believe that if she gets elected, that would be important for her to escape these crimes, to escape punishment, either because she can pardon herself, or President Obama pardons her before he leaves office, or she just uses her presidential influence to just make it impossible for anybody to really attack her. So suppose you're an American voter and you think she's guilty of a crime now. You don't care because you still prefer her as your president. You just don't want this Donald Trump running your country. But let's say you do accept that she's done crimes, and then you vote for her, and then she gets elected, and then, as you knew would happen, she uses the power of the presidency to avoid prosecution. Doesn't that make you, as a voter, an accessory to the crime? An accomplice. Yeah, an accomplice. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know, if do voting laws shield a citizen in that case? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe voting, that wouldn't be a bad law if we said voters can't be held responsible for anything that happens to their candidate. But this is kind of a different situation, isn't it? Have we ever had a candidate who you're voting for president that you knew was a criminal? Because even the people who support her at this point, I think Bill Maher said humorously but frighteningly, he said that he doesn't care if she had personal servers in her basement, and he didn't care if she was holding JonBenet Ramsey hostage in her basement. He was going to vote for her anyway. Now, I think that's an admission that he knows she's a criminal. Now, I happen to think that the crime of having a personal server is not like a big enough crime that I would care about it. And if that never got prosecuted just for that reason, I wouldn't march in the streets over it. But if it turns out that there's more to it, then I think that's a different story, and we'll probably know that in the next week. But the Clinton Foundation stuff is enough to know that there's crime going on. The fact that Bill Clinton got on that airplane with Loretta Lynch for 39 minutes, there's nobody in the world who thinks that wasn't a crime. So if you think she was involved in a crime, but you still prefer her for president because you think it's still better than the alternative, and you vote for her, and you know that voting for her will probably allow her to get away with a crime because the president has more powers to get away with stuff, doesn't that make you an accomplice? That feels, and here I'm not trying to be overly political pundit, biased on one side. I'm just talking about a definition. If you know a crime is committed and you knowingly do something, a positive act that was optional, and it's an optional action, and you chose it willingly and knowingly, you voted for her, knowing that that would help her get away with that crime, just ask him. Yeah, I don't think you can blame the advisors at this point. Malik Obama's persuasion. I'll have to check out Malik's Twitter feed. By the way, you should all do that. Go check out Malik Obama's Twitter feed. I haven't seen it, but I hear some good stuff there. Does Christina think Hillary is guilty? Let me ask a question a different way. Is there anybody who thinks she isn't guilty of something? Really? Is there anybody who thinks that? Now you might think she's different. She's guilty of different things than I think, or vice versa. But everyone thinks she's guilty at this point, right? even her supporters? Haven't we gone past that question? I think we're past the question of whether she's crooked, and now we're deep into the question of, sure, she's crooked, but look who she's running against. Michael Moore thinks she is a saint. You are absolutely wrong about that. Michael Moore is a lot of things, and I can find plenty of things to criticize, plenty of things to disagree with him, right? But here's what he's not. He's not stupid. He's not blind. Michael Moore knows exactly what he's getting if he supports her. And by the way, I would not be surprised to see him turn on her, just out of principle, and just support Jill Stein or something. Do not be surprised if he turns on her, because I don't know if he wants that on his conscience, to actually put her in power after these recent revelations. Moore does have sympathy for working people. Yes, I think he does. At least 3 more bombshells coming from which side? What do you like about Michael Moore? Well, he's an amazing persuader. All right. So if I'm being fair, the thing I started talking about Trump was how good he is at persuasion, without regard to his politics. I'll say the same about Michael Moore. Without regard to his politics, without agreeing with his politics, I'll say that he's really good. He's entertaining. He's persuasive. He's successful. He's a great communicator. You can't take that away from him, right? Persuaded you of the 9/11 connection? Clean your muskets. Let me say this to all of you here. I think there are times in history when you do have to grab your musket and go to the streets. This isn't that time, right? If Clinton wins and the system is rigged, we do have the tools in place to dismantle whatever pollsters, fraudsters, cheats, criminals were involved. And I think we should let that run its course. I don't, civil disobedience will be worse if Trump wins. Yeah, but I think, here's the thing. If you support Trump, know what you're getting, okay? Just have your eyes open. Just know what you're getting. And part of what you're getting is a shitload of trouble from people who don't like Trump. So if you're not willing to help make things better, don't vote for Trump, all right? I would say that, if you're not willing to, jump in and try to make the country a little bit better in some small way, even if it's just improving the discourse, trying to be kind to people who are being mean to you, once he wins, you own that, all right? If you break it, you bought it, right? If you elect Trump, you own Trump. Those of you who vote for him, and I think you want to roll up your sleeves and figure out a way that you as a citizen can help make the country better. Because if he doesn't start succeeding fairly quickly, shit's going to come down. Will you change your mind and vote? No, I don't. I will not vote. Thoughts on Weiner? Well, most of my thoughts on Weiner are in the form of punchlines. There's nothing that could be better about this election. Like, just name one thing. If you were gonna try to just write a fictional book about an election, and you just try to throw in every damn thing that would be interesting, provocative, amazing, could you beat reality? I mean, this is amazing, just amazing. So I think Drain the Swamp, by the way, has been a really effective persuasion. Because the beauty of Drain the Swamp is that, like Crooked Hillary, like Lyin' Ted, you can fill in that thought with whatever you need to. And that's actually a key trick in persuasion and in hypnosis. In hypnosis, if you're trying to get somebody to relax, let's say you're actually hypnotizing them, their eyes are closed and you're doing an induction. One of the tricks of hypnosis is that you don't want to violate what somebody's thinking. You want to give them new thoughts, but you don't want to say, now you're thinking of a tree, if there's any chance that they're not thinking of a tree. Right? So you never violate their thoughts. You want to make sure that the things you're saying are compatible at all times with the things they're thinking, because it's that compatibility and the non-violation of the compatibility that gives you influence. All right? People want to think that your brain and their brain are so connected that your thoughts and their thoughts are a little bit indistinguishable. In other words, they feel that they're influencing you, whether they are or not. But in turn, they don't mind that you influence them because you're like one mind. All right, that's what you're going for when you're trying to influence people. So part of that trick is if you say something like drain the swamp, you let people fill it in with whatever details they want, and you haven't violated that. So some people might say, oh, he's talking about the media, the biased media. We're going to drain that swamp. And that works. Oh, he's talking about Congress. We're going to drain that swamp. That works. Or he's talking about the money lobbyists and their interests. We're going to drain that swamp. Well, that works too. Maybe he's talking about the Clinton Foundation. Drain that swamp. That works too. So the beauty of it is, when you say something like Crooked Hillary, it's this big, broad term that's effective because everybody fills it in with their own imagination of what works best for them. All right? So whatever you think is most crooked is what you think of when you think of Crooked Hillary. Trump didn't over-specify that. So when people ask me, why is it that I think Trump is a persuasion genius, even though he says crazy things that we wish he wouldn't, right? From a standard political standpoint, he says things that can't possibly be helping him, and we wish he wouldn't. So those things are not genius at all, but they're also not persuasion technique. They're just sort of political mistakes, I would say. Small ones, but political mistakes. But when he does persuasion, it's always by the letter. Like his persuasion is never half good. Let me give you an example. When Clinton wanted to go with Dangerous Donald, remember that was their idea for a linguistic kill shot, Dangerous Donald? They picked a lovable cartoon character. The dangerous part was good, but they picked a lovable cartoon character with an almost certainty that, Disney or somebody would complain about it. And even forget about Donald Duck, the lovable cartoon character. Ducks themselves are lovable, right? So it was a terrible kill shot. But Trump doesn't make those mistakes. All right. When he says somebody's crooked, there's no good interpretation of that. There isn't the good version of crooked. All right. When he says drain the swamp, nobody's thinking, well, sometimes swamps are good. They're good for the wildlife. Well, yeah, they are good for the birds, I guess, and the wildlife. But nobody's really thinking that when they think swamp, right? Your brain doesn't really go to the positive aspect of a swamp. So Trump does it right all the time. There were a few other examples of that I had in mind recently. Oh, the nasty one. So remember when Clinton called Trump supporters deplorables? I waded in with my persuasion fairly quickly and noted that deplorable is actually kind of a cool word, and it rhymes with adorable. So you saw a lot of people, the women especially, the female Trump supporters, saying they were adorable deplorables. And the thing with deplorable is, although the word is unambiguously an insult, the word itself is kind of cute. And since we can't think of any actual bad character in history who is actually deplorable, like there's no face to it, It was just kind of a fun word, and people didn't mind being like, a little bit edgy. Yeah, I'm a little bit deplorable. I've told some bad jokes. I've done some bad things. I'm a good person, but I've done some deplorable things. So when the Trump people decided to own that, it was good persuasion, all right? In this case, by the supporters more than Trump himself. But it was spot on. And, I'll take a little bit of credit for helping to call that out, that the adorable deplorables was something worth owning. Now you wait a little while, and Trump says later, nasty woman. He uses that phrase during the debates. So Clinton supporters decide to do the same technique that Trump supporters used and try to own it, right? Instead of making an insult, we're going to own it and use it as our rallying cry. But nasty, there's no good version of nasty. Nasty is just nasty. Nobody likes nasty. It was the worst idea. And nasty woman, adds on top of nasty, right? Because, as soon as you add nasty and woman, your brain goes to a whole bunch of things that could be nasty that are woman specific. And here I have to be careful because anything I say now can be taken out of context, right? So I'm just going to say that the normal human brain, if you combine the word nasty, which we don't have any good connotation to that, the word itself, listen to it, nasty, right? It's got onomatopoeia all over it, right? The word nasty is the worst word you could ever want to associate with yourself. It's terrible. It would be like associating yourself with a swamp. It would be like they said, hey, we're the swamp people. No, swamps are bad all the time. Deplorable, adorable, pretty cute. Nasty, swamp, not so much. So every time you see that there's any any type of attempt at persuasion that doesn't come through, Cialdini and his crew of cognitive scientists, anytime that happens, they make mistakes, and Trump pretty much doesn't. All right, he makes mistakes when he just runs his mouth, but when he's thinking about it and coming up with a kill shot or a theme or a new slogan or any of that, those are right on target. I mean, those are so well designed that literally a year ago I was getting goosebumps watching him work because his persuasion was so good, and it still makes me laugh. I've taught you about the laugh tell, meaning that if sometimes things that make you laugh are really because they're persuading you, like you're feeling yourself being persuaded and it just feels wrong because you had one idea in your mind, but this new idea is introduced and it's so persuasive that it's making your old idea, quiver a little bit. It's starting to twitch. It's like, oh, my old idea wasn't as good as I thought it was. And the natural human reaction to that is a laugh. And it's sort of a laugh that's out of place, right? Because there was no joke. So if you find yourself laughing when there was no joke, because just one idea contrasted with another idea, you're probably being persuaded. Not every time, right? But it's a pretty reliable tell. And by the way, this is straight hypnosis. People under hypnosis will often start to laugh as they're feeling the influence of the hypnotist. We're actually taught that. So that the laugh tell is not something I made up. It's a real phenomenon in hypnosis. So I was watching Trump the other day, yesterday I think, on some interview, must have been Fox because nobody else talks to him lately, or he doesn't talk to anybody else lately. But I laughed all the way through it, and there wasn't one joke. It was just the way he talks is so persuasively well-designed, while being hidden in this simple voice of the people, sentences that stop in the middle and he starts a new thought. These quick little small word sentences. I was just crying. I was laughing so hard, and it wasn't because I agreed with him or disagreed with him or anything. I could just feel the persuasion. I could actually feel it in my body, and it made me laugh. on purpose, or is he getting help? I think it's mostly Trump. Clearly, he's getting tons of advice, and when you get a lot of advice, you have the option of picking out the good ones. But it's not easy to pick out the good ones. I mean, look at Clinton. She's not picking out the good ones. She's picking out the bad ones because she doesn't know the difference between good persuasion and bad. But I suspect that when she consciously asks, let's say, her cognitive scientist advisors, is this better than this, then she gets good advice. So, for example, when they decided to go negative and paint Trump as a horrible, scary monster, that was probably a result of good cognitive science advice. Go for the scariest possible thing you can. Do you think Obama is persuasive? He's persuasive in a different way. I think Obama's best tool is that the public was ready for him. They wanted an African American president, whether you're white or black or whatever color you are. You probably thought it was time. I know I did. I thought let's just do this, right? Let's get a African American president, and put that in our rearview mirror. And then we don't have to talk about that anymore. And I think it did move the country in a positive direction. There were lots of good things for it. In order to do that, he had to be not scary, not radical, not unreasonable, and he talks reason better than anyone I've ever seen since Bill Clinton, I guess. Bill Clinton in his prime was even better than Obama, but Obama's great. So when Obama talks about something, he almost always takes the high ground. So he does persuasion well in that sense. He takes the big picture. And he'll say stuff like this. So partisan people say things like, everything the other side says is wrong. Everything I say is right. And immediately everybody just turns off and say, well, liar, liar, pants on fire. It can't be true that everything that the other side says is wrong. And it can't be true that everything you say is right. So he doesn't talk like that. And if you look for it, that's also a major component of persuasion. And I think Bill Clinton was similar. And I think Bush probably was not, I don't remember it as well, but that's my impression. Because one of the rules of persuasion is that when you accept the criticism from the other side, you accept their argument, you're more persuasive in rebutting it, right? So Obama was more persuasive by saying, yeah, Obamacare does have some warts, but I'm going to put it out there and then we're going to try to fix it later. To me, that sounded pretty honest and also pretty persuasive, because I didn't feel like he was hiding the warts. He said this thing has warts. I wanted it not to have warts, but it's the best we could do. It's got some warts. So I find that very persuasive, because I immediately say, okay, he's not lying on everything. If he lies on something, maybe I'll never know, but he's not lying about the criticism of his own plan. And if you look, you'll find that Obama does that fairly consistently. He first accepts the argument, then he takes the high ground and says, yeah, that argument is true, but it's not the only thing that we have to look at. I'm not going to say my weeds is better than your weeds. I'm going to go up to space and say, look at that planet. It's got weeds, it's got ocean, and we need, more ocean and fewer weeds. And then people say, okay, from that perspective, I see it. So yes, Obama is a master of looking at the big picture. He's a master of accepting the criticism and not dismissing it, and then saying why his approach is still good, even when the criticism is a little bit valid. Now, he does a good job of laughing at the things that are crazy criticisms, and there are plenty of crazy criticisms, for everybody. He does a good job of acting like the adult in the room, and that's very good, high ground persuasion. Yeah, Obama also has a really good voice. That's true. And Obama also has a good sense of humor, and that helps as well. Anthony Weiner is a master debater. I thought somebody was going to say master debater before this was over. So somebody said I should run for president next election. Who's in? No, no, no. Run, run, no, 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 no. No. My voice is hypnotizing your cat? Purr. What's your tax policy? Less taxes for me, more for you, so that I can pay less. I think I can win on that. No, I'm not going to run for president, and here's why. If anything, this election has shown that good people who have ever done anything sketchy can't really run for president. And I doubt that I could survive the vetting process. Plus, I'd have to legalize marijuana in Washington, D.C. Looks like we'll have that on November 8th in California. Recreational marijuana. What else is in the news that we need to talk about? Clinton's body language and speech patterns. Yeah, I'd promised you I was going to tell you why it was obvious she was lying and what it was about her body language that said she knew more than she let on. So your tell that she's lying is that when they said, "Did you talk to Huma about it?" And we've since found out that they were on a plane together since the information came out. So it seems unlikely that they sat next to each other and didn't talk about the greatest news in both of their lives and in the world. Didn't come up. But that's not how you know it's a lie. How you know is that she didn't answer the question. So they said, "Did you talk to Huma?" And if she hadn't, there was an easy answer. She could say, "No, in a situation like this, attorneys would advise you, and I am an attorney, I am a lawyer, and, it's basic strategy is that you don't talk to each other because it would look like you were colluding on your answers. So just as a matter of propriety, we put some distance." So that's what an honest answer would look like. And by the way, even a lie could look like that, because that would be a pretty good lie. You would say that, "No, we were on the plane, but we made a point of not talking to each other and making sure that there were people witnessing the whole thing." That would be a good answer. But if you say, what was her answer to that question? Did you talk to Huma? And she said something like, "We don't even know how those emails got there." Basically, she went straight to shooting the messenger or Comey or something. So in the world of lie detection, that's as close to 100% chance of lying as you can possibly get. So she knows more than she's saying, not only about talking to Umar, but about what might be on those emails. The other thing she's lying about, if you can call this a lie, is that she's saying, "Release all those emails so that we can see what's there and get past this." Now, she knows that it's an open investigation and the FBI, can't release any of it piecemeal, right? So, but she knows that the public won't necessarily know that. So even though the pundits are trying to straighten out the public, not everybody watches every show that's, on TV. So you could easily miss it. So the fact that she's using that, as a defense at all is sketchy. But I would need to actually have the video up to show you the body language problem. But her energy and her attitude were more consistent with someone whose dog just died. Do you hear that? That's my dog having a dream. We're going to take you over there to see if she's. Oh, that was my dog. She barks in her sleep. Her little legs run, and she goes rah, 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 chasing a rabbit in her sleep. So if you look, so the fake smile combined with just this whole depressing, defeatist, low energy approach to it tells you that she knows there's something in those emails that will end her. That's possible. She knows something that will end her assistant, and that would make you pretty unhappy too. But I don't think so. I think at this point she knew her assistant was kind of screwed already, just because of the whole Wiener thing. And I think she knows that the election's over. So she gave the impression of someone who believes the election's over and she lost. She smirks at it like it's no big deal, right? So here's how you would treat this if you knew there was nothing on there. You would say, look, I'm not worried about it because I know there can't be anything on there that would be a problem because I didn't do anything that would be a problem. So I'm just going to forge on and let's talk about policies, right? But she couldn't even do that. See, the normal thing when you're being criticized for something that's bad is you keep your energy up and you say, let the FBI work with that. I already know there's nothing on there. What I'm going to do is just talk about good things. Talk about what I'm going to do. And don't worry about me becoming president because there's just nothing on there. You don't have to worry about it. But she never told us that there's nothing on there to worry about. Think about it. Let that sink in, right? That Clinton never said in clear language, I'm not worried about what's on there because there isn't anything to be worried about. I didn't send anything by email that would be any problem at all. So there's certainly nothing from me on there that would be problematic at all. I can't speak for other people or other emails, but other people aren't running for president. This is a good answer. Other people aren't running for president, but I can tell you for myself, I can guarantee you there's nothing on there that would be problematic for me personally. And you're voting for me. You're not voting for anybody else who sent an email, anybody else who had a bad idea, anybody else who said something that you don't like. You're not voting for them. And chances are I never saw those emails either. So let's just do what's good for the country. How easy would it be to say something like that? All right? But instead, she said, we don't know what's on those emails. Why don't they tell us? All right, that's a liar's answer. And it's an answer of someone who knows there's something on those emails that's really fucking bad. All right? And she knows it's a career-ending thing. That's why her attitude was low and why she couldn't even say, in a positive way, there's nothing on there. Because not only is there nothing on that laptop, there's nothing anywhere. There's nothing anywhere that anybody's ever going to find that will be problematic for me. Because I didn't write anything that would be problematic. So let's talk about something else. Easy to do if you're innocent, but guilty people talk the way she talks. Innocent people talk the way I just talked. Right? Because I guarantee, if you put me in that situation and I knew that I hadn't done anything illegal, that's what I'd say. I'd say I can't speak for any other emails, but I'm running for president. I didn't do anything that you're going to have to worry about. I'll promise you now that if you elect me, you're not going to be disappointed. Nothing's going to be in those emails that would have changed your decision. I give you my word. That's what an honest person says, right? But a liar says, show us the evidence. I think I've taught you that before, that the most guaranteed way to catch a liar, let's say it's a murder case, you bring in the suspect and you say, did you kill this person on Tuesday the 13th? If you say, who told you that? You're guilty. If you say, what evidence do you have of that? You're guilty. But if you say, what the fuck are you talking about? I was I was playing soccer with my entire team that night. Why don't you ask them? You know, this is crazy. Then if you go on and say, who told you that, or where'd you get that evidence, then you're innocent, right? But if your first reaction is who told you, or what is your source, or can you show me your evidence, you're guilty. You're guilty. You're guilty, guilty, guilty. No doubt about it, all right? This is as close to a universal truth as you'll ever find. And if you have kids, it's like a little handy lie detector. As soon as they say, what makes you think that? Who gave you that information? What evidence do you have that I'm the one who wrote on the wall? You know, did my sibling tell you I wrote on the wall? Guilty, 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 guilty. But if you say, what? I wasn't even there. I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe innocent, or a good liar. TMZ. So I saw this thing on TMZ that purports to be a TMZ thing that looks like Tim Kaine using the N-word, but it looked like a hoax to me. It looked like some other person using the N-word, and maybe it got conflated with him somehow. Did anybody see that? Because that looked like a pretty bad thing. Has anybody seen that going around? Yeah, I'm calling that one a hoax. Nope. Yeah, well, don't look for it, because I don't think there's any credibility. Why did I retweet an onion picture? Because it was funny. So, yeah, what was it Lynch refused? She took the fifth? Can anybody explain to me why somebody takes the fifth in that situation? Because here's what's missing from that. I understand why when you take the fifth, you do not go to the next step and say why you took it. I mean, other than not wanting to incriminate yourself. But she has supporters and pundits and things, and that's their job, right? To say, oh, it makes sense to take the fifth in this situation. This is why you do it. It's just, common good sense to take the fifth in this situation. Have you heard anybody make that defense of her? I haven't watched all the news lately, so I'll ask you this question. Have you seen anybody defend the reasons for taking the fifth? For the Attorney General taking the fifth on the questions? Yeah, somebody has seen it? Nope. Yeah, so there's your tell for a problem, right? Now, if she took the fifth, and then almost immediately people came out and said, no, look, in this situation, it's totally appropriate to take the fifth. It's not what you think. There are just reasonable reasons to do this. It has to do with the controlling the flow of information and not wanting to be misleading and being responsible for stuff. That's what you'd expect, right? But if there's no good reason other than you're protecting yourself or someone else from criminal activity, I don't know. What's the other reason? Does anybody have another reason why she'd take the fifth? I'm open-minded. I think there might be another reason. And there might be a really good reason. I mean, the reason that taking the fifth is even a thing is because there are good reasons to do it that have nothing to do with being guilty. But if you don't offer any reasons, her collusion with Bill. No, I don't think anybody's going to jail, actually. Yeah, Rico. So that's from Rudy Giuliani saying that it looks like there's enough evidence already to take a RICO case to the grand jury. I don't know if that's true because I'm not a lawyer, but Giuliani was. I know. Would you say that on television if you had been a professional prosecutor and there was just nothing to it? You expect the pundits and the supporters on each side to be biased for their person. But would Rudy Giuliani stake his reputation as one of the most effective prosecutors we've known? Would he risk that by saying something that was batshit crazy on television about prosecuting? I think when it comes to prosecution, he probably plays it straight. Obviously he's supporting his man, but when he's talking about the legal, machinery, I doubt he's saying bullshit, because he would just be called out in a second by other people who are prosecutors. And by the way, I didn't see anybody argue that. So Giuliani made the case that there might be enough there for a RICO investigation. Have you seen anybody on CNN, for example, say no, there's not enough there? Yeah, no argument against that I've seen. Tell us about Mike Pence's time machine. Was that a comment about going back to the Clinton world or something? So I think changing the subject here, I think one of the most effective arguments against a Clinton presidency at this point is that it's going to be nonstop investigations and nonstop scandals. And even if it turned out that they skated on everything, got away with everything, do you want a president who's just hobbled by that? I mean, it was really horrible during the Monica Lewinsky years. And by the way, you could blame the Republicans for doing that. But the fact is, it's going to happen, right? Or does it only happen if there's enough Republicans in Congress? Ruined Monica's life. Yeah. Obama canceled events with Clinton. That could be coincidence. There could be stuff going on. You never know. Mark Cuban's about to be interviewed on Fox News. All right, I'm stopping everything for that. Turning on the TV. I gotta grab my glasses. Did it say when he's going to be on? Two minutes. Oh my God, this is going to be good. Yeah. So here's the thing. If Mark Cuban comes on Fox News in a minute and he says any version of their talking points, like the Russians got these emails, or let's blame Comey for doing something a month before the election. If he goes after the messenger, he has no career in politics. His political life is over. He's going to have to put some distance between himself and all this stuff. All right. If he doubles down, and I think he will, by the way, if he doubles down and just goes with the baloney excuses that everybody else has been going with, his credibility will be completely gone. His whole proposition is, should he run for office, and I think he might at some point, his proposition would be that he's not a regular politician. So now he's got a little trap here. This is going to be really interesting. All right, you got to stay with me for this. This is going to be really interesting. His entire credibility is built around the fact he's not a politician, and he doesn't do obvious lying politician things. Now, I think he's maybe drifted into the biased pundit position, but you don't mind that too much because you understand the context, right? He's pulling for his candidate. But this is a different situation. I mean, at this point, the Clintons are just understood by the entire public, Democrats and Republicans alike, to actually be crooked. Like now we kind of know. Before, I have to admit, I was very late to this. I was late to the game in the sense that I didn't think the corruption charges were real. I didn't think there would be anything in the WikiLeaks. I didn't think there'd be anything, more about the emails and the servers. I thought that was all just going to be partisan, just looking for anything to attack the Clintons. I honestly thought that. I thought there wouldn't be anything there. But there's something there. Oh, God, there's something there. They have the Clinton machine appears to be right on the cusp of completely subverting the republic. Oh, got to turn it up.
You started the benefactor. Why did you decide to turn on him? Well, I never really turned on him early on, right? We just had a little rivalry, and that was fun, and it was just for yucks. But once he decided to run, I actually was very positive about him at the beginning. I thought he was candid, open, honest. But at some point you have to dig in and learn the issues. And I told him specifically, you've got to understand what you're talking about. And I think that's where he fell short. And that's why I wouldn't say turned against him, but went in a different direction. So he didn't take your advice, but at the same time, it seems kind of personal. I've heard you say he flaunts his wealth. It seems like you kind of resent Donald Trump. No, I don't resent Donald Trump.
That's the laugh tell. Oh, I don't resent him.
Running for anything other than president of the United States, I could care less. It's an important office, so I thought it was important to reflect on what I thought about him. Now, you would have to admit, I know you're for Hillary Clinton, we'll get into that in a second, that the media coverage of Trump in the last couple of months has been pretty overwhelmingly negative. Well, that's of his own making, isn't it?
Talk about Clinton. Come on.
He says if you're going to, make the flippant comments that he makes, you're going to get covered. I mean, look, all he had to do was shut up 9 out of 10 times, and the coverage would be distinctly different. It's just not something he's capable of doing.
Now let's talk about Clinton.
Some of his own words have been used as ammunition against him, but you don't detect that in the media establishment there is a certain hostility toward Trump?
Oh, watch this.
No, I mean, look.
No.
He was happy to ride the train, right? He bragged about media coverage. He was excited about it. He loved the live look-in, the live coverage of everything he did during the primaries or early on in the presidential race. It's a two-edged sword. You know that. We all know that. So that if you're going to love it on the way up, everybody's going to turn on you at some point, and you've got to be able to deal with it. Well, even on the way up, he was often criticizing the dishonest media and singling out news organizations. I mean, that's just shtick. He punches back. Well, it's a shtick that, any politician is entitled to do. Now, I've seen you at all the debates, so I'm wondering, how did you go from emerging as a kind of a Trump critic to being an open advocate for Hillary Clinton?
Here it comes.
Well, once I kind of decided that Donald wasn't qualified to be president, before I endorsed Secretary Clinton, I had to do my homework. I'm a tech guy, so I dug in on the email issues, and it was clear to me that she dealt with all of her classified documents using hard copy. So, and the FBI reports confirmed that. I dug in and did my own research on the foundation. There'd never been any reported evidence of pay to play. I saw that
Evidence.
The foundation did good things. So once I ticked off the things that were kind of the media issues, the branding issues that were assigned against her, I then decided to endorse her. All right, but it sounds also like your main goal is to stop Trump. Let me ask you this. No, not necessarily. I think she'll be, to be clear, I think she'll be a good president. People feel that the mainstream press is in the tank, not the Shark Tank, but in the tank for Hillary Clinton, and at least have been much easier on her. Your thoughts? Well, first you have to decide what's mainstream press. Is it the cable news network with the highest ratings, or who is mainstream? But that aside, I don't think there's any question that there are certain reporters that favor Hillary, and there are certain reporters that favor Donald, and some have more visibility than others. But to say one's in the tank for the other, I don't see it as a platform that you can say mainstream media has got it in for Donald and is very pro Hillary Clinton. What was your relationship with Trump like before this campaign? And tell me a little bit more about this conversation in which you say you advised him to drill down more on the issues, and did he say that he would? And tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you that we're friends. I mean, acquaintances at best for the longest time. We really really just started talking. When I said that he was the best thing that happened to politics because he's open and honest and not scripted, then he reached out to me and he called me a couple times and we had some conversations. But the majority of our interactions were me sending an email to his assistant printing them out, him writing a reply, her scanning it back to me, scanning it, and then resending it back to me as an email. And we would have a lot of give and take. And so one time I went on one of the networks and said, look, at this point in time, I'm not supporting Donald. I think, A, B, and C are issues. And he reached out to me and said, what happened? And I sent him an in-depth email, detailing what I just told you.
Well, interesting. So he wanted the owner of the Dallas Mavericks on his team, but it obviously didn't work out. You concluded. All right. Now, look, this campaign has obviously raised your profile. So in a Trumpian kind of way, are you building your brand? And having told the Washington
Good question.
Point that Trump has paved the way for someone like you to run for high office.
Watch him laugh. Laugh tell. Coming up.
No, absolutely not. Maybe at the beginning that was a possibility, but now here we are, 10 days or whatever.
Actually, that's an honest answer.
And it's the exact opposite. I think rather than paving the way for somebody who's a celebrity or a business person or an entrepreneur, it's actually had a negative effect now. Anybody
It's an honest answer.
who run going forward is going to be compared to Donald, and that's not a positive association.
But just briefly, is all the political visibility here helping to build your personal brand?
No, not necessarily. I mean, in Texas, it certainly is not an automatic benefit. So no, I wouldn't say it's about building my personal brand at all. I mean, I have a platform. It's really easy for me to get on media. It's really easy for me to send out a message. And I've been apolitical my entire adult life. And so, if I were really focused on building my brand, I wouldn't do it by associating with politics at all. That'd be the worst.
It's Fox.
I hear you. Mark Cuban, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Howard. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mark Cuban, just before you were the FBI investigation, after the breakdown?
That was Mark Cuban before news of the FBI investigation, so Cuban didn't have all the information at that point. How did he do? He's not terribly good at this, I'm going to have to say. I mean, he's smart, so I expect he'll get a lot better at it, but it's tough to defend some of this stuff and sound credible. He was crying. He didn't look happy. So it's interesting that, in his opinion, the Clinton Foundation, look at the specificity of his answer. And by the way, here's another tell for lying. So remember this one. This is a good one. He used this tell. If you get too specific in your answer, when the answer doesn't call for that specificity, you're probably finding a way to lie without lying. So if somebody says, did you eat all the candy? You'd say, I don't eat the caramels. All right, so you made your answer too specific. It's probably a lie. It means you ate the other chocolate. All right. So when Cuban was talking about his decision to support Hillary, he talked about he did his research on the Clinton Foundation and found out that there was no direct evidence of pay-for-play. Now, check the timing of that. That means that, months ago, he did his research, and based on the evidence we had then, before WikiLeaks, he concluded that there was no evidence of anything untoward happening. But we're not before WikiLeaks now. His answer was over-specific. He picked a period in time, and he told you the truth about that specific period of time, that when he looked at it then, he found no evidence of pay-for-play. He avoided, specifically, saying whether that's changed, because it has changed. There's no way in the world he doesn't know that there's pay-for-play now, because everybody knows it, right? So when you see an answer that's overly specified to a time period or to one piece of candy and not all the candy, that sort of thing, always a lie. or maybe a lie is the wrong word. It's a deception, is what it is. No, I don't think it was a case of ignorance. Cuban asked for that interview on Fox. Did he ask for it, or did he just agree to it? I think talking to Howard Kurtz is slightly different than appearing on the more newsy, biased parts of Fox, because Kurtz is about how the media treats things. Should Megyn Kelly go on CNN? Why? Yeah, what is Ana Navarro saying lately? I realize she's going to have a hard time supporting Clinton now, right? She's on ABC now? Well, that's no surprise. Is Ana Navarro actually defending anything that's coming out lately? She's hyperventilating? Thoughts on Syria? I think we don't know anything about Syria. I think that any information coming out of a war zone is managed information. And that means it's managed for political reasons, for military reasons. So you should assume that whatever you're learning from ISIS territory is not credible, no matter who says it. CNN talking about fake news. Trump bomb dropping Monday. Probably more sex stuff. Here's the thing with deciding between Trump's sexual improprieties versus Clinton's criminal behavior. If you accept that these are our two choices, and you just got to pick one. Let's say you hate both of those things. You hate his sexual conduct, and let's say you believe it, and you hate the pay-for-play stuff. The thing is that only one of them is going to hurt the whole country. All right? Even if you imagine that Trump continued touching people inappropriately, which seems less likely as president, it's going to have individual victims. And here I'm not defending any of this. Don't condone it. Don't take me out of context. I'm just doing the math. So the math of it is that even if the worst case scenario, let's say everything you thought about Trump, his improper actions toward women, suppose every bit of that's true. Maybe, let's say it's 10 times worse than you thought, because it could be. It's like worse than you thought. Worst case scenario, there are individual victims, which is horrible, right? I mean, that would be terrible. But in the Clinton case, there will be hundreds of millions of victims, because if she's really doing pay-per-play, she's distorting the republic of the... Did I just go dark? What the hell happened? All right. So we have this horrible situation as voters. You can vote for Trump, and in a sense, you're either forgiving or not believing, I suppose, the allegations of his treatment of women. Or you can elect Clinton, and you can be guaranteed that she'll screw you personally, because that's what's been revealed, that her decisions will be based on who has the most money. So we know that now, right? So if you assume the worst about both of them, Clinton's crimes might affect you, and Trump's alleged crimes are either done or they might affect other people. and only a few of them. Worst case scenario, right? If everything bad said about both of them is true, Trump's crimes will affect fewer people. They're terrible if they're true, but they'll affect fewer people. What if there's video of him saying the N-word? I'm not going to speculate on that because, first of all, it seems unlikely. And second of all, if it happened, there's nothing to speculate about. Seth Rich, death is coming? I doubt it. You think that's like Bill Maher's argument? The difference is that the Clinton Foundation stuff is now known, whereas the stuff that Bill Maher is afraid of is what Trump will do in the future because he thinks he's a crazy racist who can't be trusted with the nuclear codes. None of that's real, right? That's pure hypnosis. The left has been hypnotized by cognitive scientists into thinking that Trump is dangerous and unstable because he says stuff that you don't like. So that's different. Yeah, the 13-year-old girl lawsuit, I have heard about that, and I read about the person behind that, not the girl, but there's an adult behind it who has a track record of sketchy behavior that would lead you to believe it's very unlikely any of that happened. Oh, is it Project Veritas that's dropping the video on Monday? Safe room. Hillary canceled her stops. Was that true? Happy Diwali. Even Jezebel doesn't believe the 13-year-old lawsuit. Yeah, there's a reason that one isn't getting traction. It's because it doesn't deserve it. What about the liberal thugs going after the homeless person? Well, I've been making the point that the hill bullies, as I call them, were a big problem. And that homeless person created a visual, a visual persuasion on the same point. It's really different when you see it. It's one thing to hear other people say, hey, I got bullied. And you think to yourself, that's life. But you actually see the evil and the meanness in that video. And a homeless person being, literally the weakest member of society. National Enquirer on Wednesday. What's that going to be about? I guess it'll be more about Hillary than Trump. Trump's looking for her. It's hard to find a homeless person. Well, yeah, obviously Huma's going to be crying no matter what she did or didn't do. It's not a good day. An aborted fetus is weak. True enough. If I were at a Clinton protest, what would my sign say? You mean I'm protesting Clinton? Drudge founder? Interesting. So they found her. I wonder if she'll be on CNN. Am I going to be a VIP? Aren't I already? Yeah. I mean, so in terms of my predictions, I always try to put them in terms of steady state, meaning if nothing changed, if there were no new information from today until election day, oops, Trump would win in a landslide, yes. But apparently there are going to be some more surprises coming, so. All right. I would advise you not to riot no matter what happens. And I'm going to sign off now. I got a bunch of work to do. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.